So, can I start?
Yeah, I think we've started recording. You can start.
So, I'm going to speak about natural philosophy. Okay, so what is natural philosophy? So, essentially, it is the early precursor to modern science. What we call science today, the traditional subjects that are in science today, physics, chemistry, and biology, and the study of nature in general. So previously, it was called natural philosophy. So again, so this natural philosophy, it consisted of topics that included the study of topics like astronomy, metaphysics, biology, chemistry, and physics, those kind of things. Anything that has got to do with trying to understand how the world works and how the universe works. That was what uh, this field of study was called as natural philosophy. So if we look at the early people involved in this area, like Isaac Newton, Galileo Galilei, those people were they would- during their time they were not known as scientists. They were called natural philosophers. Only today we call them scientists, but in their time they were known as natural philosophers. And over time, the term gradually shifted towards uh, the it's gradually came to be known as science, but initially it was known as natural philosophy. Okay, so anything? Do you want to ask anything?
Mm. So, I mean, somewhat related to what you're talking about, just a little question. So, during the time of Newton, what was the status of science? Like, how much did we know? Newton was in about 1700s, right?
Yes, he 1640s to 1712 or something. Yes, between 1600 and 1700s, he lived during that era. So the
So during
status
that
of
time,
science.
subjects like physics, chemistry, maths, or like the separation or concrete subjects like that did not exist.
No, I think so. Mathematics existed because maths existed as a separate subject because it is a very old subject. Maths is a very old subject. Means it existed as a separate subject for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Because the early geometry, the things that you call as Euclidean geometry. So Euclid, I don't know. I'm not sure how long ago he existed, but since the time of Aristotle and Plato, mathematics existed, and it was known as mathematics. But other subjects like physics, chemistry, those are very recent things as a subject. As a subject, I'm not as a distinct subject. They are, I would say, maybe 200, 300 years old. Not very.
Okay.
Uh,
But biology
so
must have been existed uh, before that.
biology.
Yeah.
I mean, so
But is it
no.
considered part of modern science or natural philosophy?
Yes, it is. So the thing is that those no the study of those objects existed. Just as I've said, things like astronomy existed. Even Galileo and Johannes Kepler, the Kepler's laws of those three laws, not
Yeah.
the Newton's laws, Kepler's laws about how the planets revolve around the sun.
Yeah.
Those existed. Even I think so. Kepler was he was from the eras of 1500s or something. So those the study of those things existed, but they at the time it wasn't known as physics or astronomy. It was just natural philosophy. Means uh, all of those was considered as trying to understand nature. So it wasn't considered okay. Oh, I'm studying chemistry or I'm studying physics. Even biology during the period of Charles Darwin, I think so. Again, it was called as natural philosophy. It wasn't termed as biology at that time, most probably. So all of those things, all any pursuit that was concerned with trying to understand how nature works or what nature is, any pursuit was known as natural philosophy.
Right.
So so one characteristic was that that many natural philosophers were polymaths. A polymath is a person who has in-depth knowledge about a various of many different fields. So he has quite a bit of knowledge about many different fields. So that is one thing. So I think so these days people tend to be more specialized in nature, and even though I'm not against specialization, it has its perks, it has its advantages. But if you look at, I think so, it was Adam Smith in The Wealth of Nations, the economist Adam Smith. So I think so. It is he who said that uh, it is specialization that has made humanity to progress as far as we have. Because if you specialize in one thing, you can be very good at that thing, and that's why how civilization has been able to create these different technologies and inventions that has made this modern civilization possible. That is an advantage. But at the same time, each individual is very limited in nature, in the sense that they make minute progress in a very specialized field. So I don't remember exactly where I read, but uh, I've read somewhere where it says that in today's education, the more you study, the more you know more and more about less and less. Do you understand?
So it's something like the more you learn, the more you know that the things you do not know, something like that.
No. That is one part of it. But what I mean to say is that in our education, suppose till class 10 we subject up till class 10 we studied a lot of other subjects. In 11th we only focus on science, and after
Yeah.
in undergraduate art of science, only one area of science, computer science. And after that, if someone else goes to other specialization, he might have studied only one specific area of computer science. And then in PhD, only one specific area of that specialization, he would know a lot about it. So in a way, he knows very much about one very small specific topic.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm
So we
trying to say?
go,
No.
yeah. So we start broad, but as we
Uh,
progress, we keep getting it. We keep getting narrow.
yeah, narrow and narrow. So one advantage of that thing is that if you know very much about one specific topic, so you can innovate or bring something new. That is an advantage.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I said?
Yeah, I understand.
Suppose, for example, there are 10 programming languages, but you suppose you know only one programming language very well. So that means you may be able to create anything. If I say you create this app or create this software, if you know that very well, so you might be able to create anything from that programming language. But the thing is that if you want to come up with something which requires holistic knowledge, that 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 is something that is lacking in our society, that is in our education system also. Apart from people who are genuinely curious or who does studies on their own, like in the free time they will read some books on, suppose, on history, or sometimes I'll read a book on politics or economics. Those are people who have a broad range of knowledge, but that is due to because of their own curiosity or their own self-study, not because the education system has made them study. So, for example, if apart from formal education, you don't study anything else, then you'll only have you'll be super specialized in one very small area, but otherwise you'll have very little understanding of everything else.
Yeah.
So yes. So
Yeah. So I understand what you were saying. So I'll just give a counter argument or like a different
okay,
perspective to this. I think
okay,
compared to those time, I feel the knowledge base has progressed a lot.
yes,
The level of knowledge for someone to be considered, what is the word you used?
polymath.
Polymath in 1700s compared to today. Like for some subjects like AI and all did not exist. For someone who had no idea what artificial intelligence is at the time, Even 10 years ago, just knowing about maybe CNN, RNN, you were considered a AI expert.
Yes.
Now the CNN, RNN are the basics of AI. So the fundamentals are it keeps stacking on top of one another.
Yes.
So to reach a level where you know about a lot of things, you have to study the entire history
Yes.
to be able to tell that you actually know what it is. And
Mm.
as time will keep on going, more stuff will keep being added to that.
Okay.
So
So
I feel that it will be difficult for someone to know quite well about a lot of things. They may know about a lot of things in a like a shallow level,
uh,
but to truly say that I can use that knowledge for something, or like I know in depth, or I understand what the topic
okay.
is,
Mm.
that will require some level of deep research or like depth, because knowledge has progressed a lot.
Yes.
In
I agree with that.
Newton's time, calculus did not exist. Someone
He
does not
created
have to
calculus.
know calculus. Yeah, someone doesn't have to know calculus to tell like call themselves a mathematical expert.
Uh, yeah.
Today, if you don't know calculus, no one will take you seriously if you say you're an expert in maths.
Mm.
So the base of knowledge is increasing. For someone to get good at all of them,
Okay.
it'll
Yes.
take
Okay.
it'll take. I mean, it is possible, but it is more effort.
Yes. I agree with that. Means it is not possible to be an expert in uh, multiple fields. So
But yeah,
again,
again, as one small thing,
uh,
uh, this polymath thing, to be expert in, let's say, chemistry, physics, maths,
hmm,
although they are three different subjects, they are almost of the same area.
yes.
They all pertain to academics or studying or some sciences overall,
Okay.
although they are very different subjects to each other,
Uh,
to one another,
okay.
right? But certain person or certain people can be good at one subjects. Maybe let's say they are very deep in computer science, in AI
Hmm,
research.
okay.
In another aspect, they are very good at music.
Hmm.
Maybe they
Yes,
are
they
very
can.
good at fitness.
Uh,
So they are going in depth in the academics in one particular field. They're going in depth in arts in one other field.
uh,
So I
yes.
guess what you get what I'm trying to say. Right? Academics
Yes.
is one whole field, but there are other
Yes. Yes.
fields, but at the
Hmm.
same time which they can. Someone like Leonardo da Vinci.
Hmm. He's the great. I'd say he's the greatest polymath. He's the greatest polymath.
Yeah, I think I've heard like in modern terms or terminology today, people use they call it Renaissance man or something.
The Renaissance man,
Have you
that's a
heard of this term?
painting. There's a painting of Renaissance man. That's
Okay.
I don't know if it's. I think so. I don't. I'm not sure if it refers to Da Vinci or not. But there's a.
I've
If
just
you
seen
go.
memes where people, if people can do multiple things, they are just termed as modern Renaissance men.
Okay. Even I'm not sure.
Maybe,
But as far as my
yeah.
knowledge goes, the Renaissance man is. If you Google search, there will be a photo of a muscular man in standing in a T-shaped manner. So that's called
Oh
the
yeah,
Renaissance
yeah.
man.
With the different hand shapes.
Yes. Yes. But I don't know much about what else it means. Only that I know that picture is called Renaissance man. Okay, and okay, so being an expert in multiple in the fields is practically impossible in these days. I would say even in those early days, even then. But uh, what what we can what uh, what's one thing that we can do is to have at least certain amount of knowledge in multiple areas,
Yeah.
so that it's not just from a professional point of view. So if you really think from a practical point of view, it's actually very difficult to be very good at a professional level in even two things. So even as a programmer, suppose if you say that okay, I'm a good programmer, in what language, in what specific aspect of the work you are. Suppose you say I'm very good in Python. Okay, you're a very good Python web developer or a very good Python machine learning expert. So you can be good at Python in machine learning, but you can be very bad at web development using Python. So you can compete with, suppose you are very good in Python for machine learning, but you can't. But that doesn't mean you can compete with a Python web developer. So you might not guess for suppose you need a job, you'll not be able to compete with that person. So from a job or from that point of view, you have to be very super specialized in one specific thing for majority of the cases. Otherwise, yeah, you won't. Even I'm just giving one example, but I'm sure this kind of example exists in multiple places. Like another example you can give in sports that I know that suppose you are a football player. Okay, in what position? You can't just be excited. I can play in multiple positions because that means you're average in multiple positions. If someone is good, but you'll only be selected to play in a team for a specific position. If someone is better than you in that position, that person will be selected over you. So it doesn't matter that you're better at 10 different positions. But on the other hand, there's one player who is very good at one position. He will be picked over you. So that I think so goes for almost all the other aspects. Even during this now we have a placement going on. I have come to realize that okay, even the field of finance is very broad. So there are some accounting related job roles, where people who have commerce background, they have a very big advantage over non-commerce background people. And so even if you say I know finance, I have a degree in finance, but those who has a background of commerce are much more well placed to get those kind of jobs over non-finance people. Yes, much more people. So from a job point of view, I do think that yes, you have to be very super specialist. Not just from a job, but if you are in academic as well, or doing academic research and those things, you'll have to be super specialized. But to bring, I'd say, to have for the sake of knowledge, and not just for the sake of knowledge, as well as coming up with solutions to different problems. It is good to have a multi-perspective. Okay, I'll give you an example. Suppose there's a saying, you've heard this saying that if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail to you. Have you heard of this?
I've not heard of it, but I can understand what it means.
Okay. Yes. So yes, means someone. So most of the times, if I suppose I'll read some economics blogs by economists. So every problem. So what I see is that every kind of social problem they try to show it as this is an economic problem. So the lens of economics they try to see, and that's okay. That is one way of seeing things. Okay. But social sciences has different aspects. Like there are sociological aspects, psychological aspects, and so many other aspects. For example, okay, I'll give you one sociological problem of, for example, drug addiction or drug related problems. So people think that okay, uh, suppose recently in Assam, in our own state, or consider any other place. Suppose they find it. Hello, can you hear me?
Your voice isn't coming.
Okay, now can you hear me? Hello. Hello.
No, still not coming.
Now can you hear me?
Yeah, it's coming now.
Is it coming now?
Yeah, it is coming.
Okay. Okay. So I was talking about the drug problem. So from one thing is that suppose what happens when people say that in a state, suppose recently there has been a uptake or in drug related problems, or drug smuggling has gone high, young people taking drugs has increased. So that suppose news comes, and what do they do next is that suppose yes, the police will come, they will raid, they'll confiscate those drugs, and they'll jail those drug smugglers, and they think that the problem is solved. And why do they think that? Means, for example, they will have underlying you unknowingly they have an underlying philosophy that drug related problem is because there is I'd say lack of police power, or I would say that the lack of security. That is what enabled drugs to be smuggled into our state. And I would say that then they might again blame the people, like the young people. They said, okay, these young people are indisciplined. Maybe their parents are indisciplined. That's one another reason. So better security in the borders of the state would so from their point of view, better security in the state and in their borders would prevent drugs from being smuggled. And if parents are more strict, then the children they won't take drugs. That is their perspective, from one perspective. But another perspective, you can see that, okay, maybe the things going on there there are things going on in their lives. Maybe it's a societal problem, like lack of jobs, or maybe whatever those, maybe some socioeconomic conditions are going on in the city, in the state or the country, and that has caused people maybe for the people to suffer from certain stress related problems they are suffering, and to get a relief from that, they are taking those things. So another way of solving this problem is that if the socioeconomic condition of that state is good, then they would not most humans would not take such kind of drugs to escape as a form of escapism. So that's another way to think about it. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but there are multiple aspects of this problem. I'm just giving one example. You can see this in many other areas. So did you get my point? That I'm trying to say that you can see things from multiple perspectives.
Yeah, I understand. Like if you have a broad base of knowledge, then you can see the same
Yes.
problem from different points of view.
Yes. So that's one thing that I have. So okay, yes, and yes, that's what I was trying to say. So having that, so I'm talking about society, but this applies to many other areas. Like in areas of, suppose there's a business problem that the business isn't expanding, or more importantly, some engineering problem. That suppose I want to create this kind of solutions or these things, some kind of design or those things. And if you have studied different subjects, that you might actually be able to integrate those kind of solutions. So if you might have heard that a lot of design principles, people take inspiration from biology. That some people have already means nature has already solved certain kind of things. So why reinvent it? Try to come up with one on their own. So those concepts have those idea. People came up with this idea because somehow they have that engineer must have somehow
Sorry, I
encountered
can't
this.
hear you again.
So now, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So yes, so those engineers, they came up with this idea because somehow one of those engineers might have read it somewhere, and so it suddenly clicked in their mind. Okay, yes, I can do this as well. A person who was, suppose, for automobile design, who is super specialized in automobile design, or someone who is super specialized in biology, and not the other, and have no idea about the other topic. None of them would have come up with that idea. But only someone who has a moderate level of knowledge in both of those things would have come up with that idea. So that's another way of thinking about it. So that's yes. Again, that's another example of taking inspiration from one field and applying it to another field. So that's only possible if you have certain amount of knowledge.
So I understand what you're saying. And talking about this, a line is coming to your mind. I'm not sure if I'm making this up or I read it somewhere else, but I remember a line like "Jack of all trades, master of few." The original is "Jack of all trades, master of none."
So none,
Right.
yes,
Yeah, but I heard some modification of this where they say
yes,
"Jack of all trades,
yes,
but master of few."
master of few. Actually, it can be done. Master of few, you can even be very good at one thing, but again, you can learn a lot about. Means you can have moderate amount of knowledge about a lot of other things. And the thing is that in our education system, that is, we learn a lot about multiple things only up to class 10. And I think
Yeah.
that at the age of 16, we are too young to realize what we are actually studying. And
Mhm.
that's one thing. Another thing is that most of the time we just memorized for the exam. Most of the history things that you learn in history, I
Yeah.
I'd say yes, it's just memorization of dates, and yes, that was most of it. But now that I read a lot of things about history and all of those things, it makes so much. It is so much interesting. Once you if you don't have the pressure of remembering the dates and anything, just trying to get the bigger picture, it becomes a lot more interesting.
It's like
And
watching a show almost.
yes, exactly. And even literature, English and all of those things. English was worse during school times. It was just you read a chapter and there's some back at the end of the chapter there are certain questions, and sometimes fill in the blanks. That was so that was quite it's horrible from an exam point of view. But now fiction in the sense that it's just as I read a lot of fiction books these days, and apart from that, even TV shows and series. If you look some good quality series, those are most of them are adaptations of books. So
Yeah.
again, you can see the big picture, not just the okay, what did he say to this character? Not about those things, but what's the moral of this of that story? Means what kind of themes they are trying to cover in there. If you just focus on those kind of things. So, for example, not recently, I would say a few months ago, I watched the show The Handmaid's Tale. Have you heard of it?
I think I've heard of it, but I've not watched it.
Okay, so it is about uh, it's mostly dystopian in nature. So
Mm.
uh, it's set in America. So the fertility rates means people's ability to reproduce has gone very down. Means most humans are not fertile,
Mm.
and they've seen it's because of lifestyle issues and everything, all of those things. The modern society, the food, the lifestyle, everything has caused people to become infertile. Those kind of things, and the levels of population and everything. Not just in the US, the whole country, also the whole world, I would say. And what happened is that they have come up with one solution. And there is not a very human solution. So what they do is that there are very few women who are fertile, and what they do is that those women are kept, uh, what to say, means kept in one family. They reproduce and they're again sent to another family. And that's the whole job. That's what they do.
Mm.
And they live in a very, I would say, authoritarian society. And you can't say anything about the government or anything. If you say anything, you'll be hanged and those kind of things. So yes, only it is a very authoritarian country. There is one, I would say, okay. There is a very, I would say, extreme way of tackling this solution. So there might be more human ways of tackling this situation, but this story has portrayed those. So again, again this story is based on the series is based on a book, The Handmaid's Tale, and so it was released in 1985. It's the book. The show is very recent, but again, so you can see the moral. The story is that okay, what kind of political systems in times of crisis where the world is in a crisis, you can see that certain political systems take precedence over more, let's say, liberal and democratic political system. Much more authoritarian
Mm.
political systems takes precedence. So these are the kind of lessons you can learn from stories like this. But and so again, once you learn these lessons, and then you can actually apply this on your real life. So when you see there's okay, more nationalistic governments are coming in, and certain minority groups are being targeted by certain governments or certain sections of people. So you can relate that okay, this is you can say even by from these stories you can learn that okay, these are not appropriate things to do to minority people. So those kind of stories make you, I would say, aware of those kind of things. You learn something from the stories. So
So you're talking about stories. Then have you seen or heard of Attack on Titan?
yes, you have mentioned about it, but I haven't seen
Yeah.
it. Yes.
Yeah. So actually, the final part or the last episode, I
Season.
should say, was it came out this month only.
Okay.
So I think many people argue, or like many people name this as the best told story of in all media,
Okay.
like not only TV series or anime, like in all aspects of storytelling.
Okay.
Because I mean, it will start it for the first three season. It will make you really like the main character,
Hmm.
and in the fourth season, he will do some things which will let you question your own morality. Like since for the first three season you have grown to like this person, and whatever he does, you
Hmm.
support it. Then in the fourth season he will do certain things, and it will really make you question: should I be supporting this person or not?
Okay.
And it has it has themes of like philosophy, genocide,
Hmm.
war. So it's like a very multi-layered story. I mean, I would suggest anyone to watch it, but it will take some time, so maybe don't start it now. It's a very well told story.
Okay. I'll really look at it. And yes. So just coming to natural philosophy once again. So coming back to natural philosophy.
Yeah.
So uh, just I'd like to just add to that. Okay, how did the transition happen from natural philosophy to modern science? So we talked about specialization, and but that is not the only aspect about natural philosophy and science. There are other aspects as well that led to the transformation from natural philosophy to modern science. One of them was that people started to become very specialized in one topic, and
Yeah.
as we have discussed, there are both pros and cons to that. And actually, the best solution would be to be a master of like jack of all, master of few. That would be the best. Rather the ideal outcome which one should pursue. Apart from that, uh, another few things that took place where the emphasis on empirical observation and experimentation. So earlier, most of the analysis was based on inductive reasoning. So you and yes, there was certain amount of empirical observation. Empirical and experimentation is, I mean that you actually experiment on things and see how it happens and what all happens,
Yeah.
and you check on these things. And based on that, you form a theory. Okay, I have seen this observation, this series of observations over a certain period of time. Now I have to create a theory that explains it. Just observation isn't enough. That's one of the things about science, is that uh, from an experimental point of view, you can show that this happens, but you also have to explain it why it happens. Now, for example, think of this experiment. You see that suppose you are an astronomer, you see that okay, after a certain every time you see that okay, for a certain hours of a day there is light, and then there is darkness. There are different celestial objects in the sun. You observe this thing, and then you become try to go one step further. You calculate the times, and you do this for several years. So during this period you realize that okay, during certain times of the years, the lightness, the light part and the dark part, the times are different. Okay, as you can see, during the winter the day is short and the night is longer. So you observe all of those things and you have experimental data, and with the data you can predict that okay, in the future during this time of the year the night should be this long or the day will be this long, and so on. But uh, but that is only you only have experimental data that you can predict, but you do not have any theory to explain that why is the sky, why the sky becomes dark, or why it becomes light during the day and darker during the night. What is actually happening? The theory would be that okay, the Earth is revolving. That is one theory. Or the another theory would be that the Earth is stationary, or maybe the outer object, whatever it is revolving around the Earth, making it darker and lighter through the day. May not be correct, but at least that's it. That's you're trying to explain an empirical observation with some kind of theory, and you might have multiple theories to explain a certain observation. So you'll need more experimental data to prove one theory over the other. That's how science actually works. So you have experimental data, and then you try to come up with theories to explain the experimental data about why this has happened. And
Yeah, so
okay,
actually, this semester,
yes.
I think I told you I had a subject called Science Technology Society.
Yes.
There were topics that like this were discussed. Things like inductivism. There is something called hypothetical deductivism.
Okay.
I don't remember all of them, but maybe I'll read through that and maybe I'll discuss next time.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Even while discussing this thing, I also got another idea that since we're talking about the history of science, another thing that came up to my mind is that chemistry was previously known as alchemy. So how did the transition happen from alchemy to chemistry? That's another topic that I think that will be interesting to research and talk about. So maybe sometime I'll also do that. But
Yeah.
yes, right now, yes. So another thing was empirical observation and experimentation over uh, philosophical or deductive reasoning and speculation. So yes, I haven't looked much more into how people came up with theories of with the help of deductive reasoning. But one example that I found is, or at least I remembered, is about when you throw two objects, one heavier and one lighter, which one will fall faster? So we know that with the absence of resistance, both will fall at the same time.
Yeah, both will fall at the same time.
Yes, but this problem, I think so. Aristotle first asked it, and he said that yes, he said that the heavier will fall faster than the lighter one, and most of it, and he gave a very, I would say, he came up with the reasoning through a reasoning point of view. He didn't do experiments to come up with the logic. But then Galileo, he did quite. I think so. He experimented with this idea, and I think so. He is the one who finally proved it that no, regardless, this only happens because of friction or air resistance. The absence of resistance, both will fall equally. So those kind of things. Means experimentation is very much given importance in modern science over nature. Whereas in natural philosophy, it wasn't considered very, I would say, an important thing. So that's one thing. And another important thing was the mathematization of nature. By that I mean that, so I think so. It mostly started with Newton. Hence, it isn't just enough to say that gravity pulls objects down. Through the mathematical equations, they have actually determined the exact rate or the there's the exact way that it pulls them. Hence, suppose earlier they knew that okay, oh no, actually before Newton they probably didn't know that gravity did this. But suppose it is before Newton they knew that okay, objects fell into the ground. But they didn't know that suppose if I tell you, okay, if this object is at this height and it is thrown from this certain point, what time it will take? There was no mathematical equation to solve for that.
Yeah.
But Newton started there. He gave this mathematical equation to solve for that, the laws of gravity. And from that onwards, all from that onwards, science became very mathematical in nature. So it made it very much accurate and much more, I'd say, robust. I'm not sure that what count is applicable or not, but again, after Newton, the laws of the laws of electromagnetism. It was actually invented by Michael Faraday. Also not so invented, but discovered by Michael Faraday. But he was not at. He didn't go to university. He worked as a bookbinder. So he binded or he bounded books, and his knowledge came through that. And I think so. He attended those lectures at the Royal Institution. He worked under some scientist, and that's how he acquired the knowledge. And so he was not very good. He was not good at all in maths. He just had he was very creative and he had a very good imagination, but very poor in maths. So even though he came up with these theories of electromagnetism, and he was the one who came up with those diagrams of magnetic fields. You remember those? Suppose the Earth's magnetic field, there is arrows and everything.
Yeah.
Yes. So he's the one who came up with that. And some said that it was because he didn't know math, but he didn't.
Which is not audible again. Still not audible.
The equations. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's coming now.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Okay. So yes, Maxwell, he was the one who came up with those equations. And it was not much later. They both live in the same time period, Maxwell and Faraday. So yes. But due to his mathematical contributions, most of the all of those electricals and communication objects are all possible because of that. Yes, mathematization of nature. That was the third. That was the another thing that led to uh, the movement from natural philosophy to transition from natural philosophy to modern science. And also the final thing that we can consider a part is the specialization of disciplines. So finally, those disciplines, the way we know it today, the biology, chemistry, physics, they became much more specialized in nature. Whereas earlier, people studied all of them. They didn't consider themselves as I'm a biologist or I'm a chemist or physicist. They just said I'm a natural philosopher. So finally, that was the last thing that things became more disciplined and more specialized in nature. So yes. And as another thing we can add is that the rise of printing press. So through printing press, what happened is that it became much more easier to publish your works, and scientists all over the world came to know about your works and build upon your ideas. So, so actually, we can see that from not just from the printing press. Now we can say through the internet, we know at least scientists working on in their fields, they can access the journals and research journals. I can read from any journal, providing I have the access to those journals. They're quite expensive. Ironically, most journals are quite expensive. You can't access those papers for free. There are some, but assuming you have them, and you have good amount of specialization in that field, you can read that paper and maybe come up with something a little bit different, something that this research was good. I think maybe if we tweak a little bit here and there, we can come up with something different and add to the knowledge base of that field of research. So printing press during that time and now internet has helped let's say yeah, increase the of knowledge base of science for humanity. So that is how it happened. So, so another thing that I said there is something that I read a while ago, not while doing this. I found about Thomas Young. I think that you have heard about Young's double slit experiment, those kind of things.
About what?
Young, double slit in physics. I think so it was
Yeah,
class
double
12, I
slit.
think, in
Okay, yeah.
optics. Double slit experiment. So it was known as Young's double slit experiment. So because it was done by Thomas Young. So there's actually a book named The Last Man Who Knew Everything. So many people say that he was the last of the natural philosophers. So means after him, the trend of specialization began. So he was the last of those people. Like there are people like Galileo and even Einstein. So they uh, contributed to a lot of different things. So even if you think about Einstein, he contributed to a lot of things. Like for example, gravity. He found he for mathematized and even discovered the concept of gravity. He made contributions to optics, and he even invented a whole new branch of mathematics. So his contributions were made in very different areas. So then, just like say Galileo, he was even more diverse, from art to engineering, so many other things. So uh, Thomas Young was another such one. So even though he did a lot of work on, say that, yes, he is most popular for his uh, double slit experiment. But again, another thing we studied in physics, in properties of solids or something, Young's modulus, the definition of elasticity.
Maybe I don't remember.
Even okay, it's how elastic something is. There is something like constant. There is known as Young's modulus. That was something is there. And apart from that, he was also an Egyptologist. Means he translated a lot of Egyptian text to English. That is one of those things he did. And yes, and not just that, and he did many other things in the field of linguistics. And but all of that, everything that he did, that was all his. I would say you can say that as a part time or as a hobby, all of those things. Because as a profession, he was a doctor by profession.
Right.
Feel he made
Doctor, you
certain
mean
discoveries.
medical doctor?
Even he, yes, medical doctor. At the time, it was known as physicians or something. So he was a doctor at the time, and yes, he made contributions to the field of human vision and all of those and those areas as a doctor. Apart from being a doctor, he also researched about human vision. And as a doctor, it is said that he was very well known as a doctor. He was a very good doctor as well. So, so the thing is that he was a very multi-talented, or I'd say, yes, you can say not just talented, but he had a wide range of knowledge for different things. So that's one thing. So, in the modern times, if you see, uh, uh, there are very few people that I actually have seen who are, I'm not saying expert, but they have a great deal of knowledge about a lot of things, enough to have a conversation. Like one of them is Lex Friedman, the podcaster.
Yeah.
The you can see that he has guests from a wide range of scientific fields, scientific, and by scientific I mean both the natural sciences, the engineering, and the social sciences department. Not just that, there are lawyers and other artists, from singers, comedians, a lot of
Actually, the
guests.
meme I told you about, Renaissance man, I heard it from one of his comment sections actually.
Okay,
The
so
people
they
were
are
calling
referring to
him,
him as,
yeah, as a modern Renaissance man.
yes. The thing is that when I listen to his, at least if not the full, I occasionally listen to full interviews, but I also listen to watch a lot of his clips, and he really talks to and yes, he really talks to a lot of people from a wide range of fields, and the things that he talks about, those are very in-depth things. Most of the things uh, go over my head when he goes talks very technical about these things. So
Yeah,
he's from the computer science background, so obviously when he talks about programming languages and anything related to computer science, sometimes he goes very deep. So that obviously goes sometimes over my head. But even other things, and he has physicists, he has certain economists, and he talk. The questions he asks are quite in depth for someone who is not very, who doesn't have a formal education in those subjects.
yeah,
So certain questions, if you watch, uh, he asked those questions to those physicists and the economists. Those are quite high level. So that, what I'm saying is that you should have at least that amount of knowledge. And in one of his clips itself, I've heard one of those advice. Usually in his interviews, at the end, he always asks for the advice. He asks the guest that any advice that he'd like to give to the viewers. So one of them said that be good in have enough knowledge in multiple subjects so that no one so that you can't be bluffed.
mm,
You get try to say
yeah,
is that yes. For example, it made sense to me in the sense that okay, suppose you're going to buy something new. Suppose you're going to buy a car or a washing machine. Suppose you have no idea what the washing machine, the different types of washing machines, the functions of a washing machine. The salesman can tell you anything, and you have no other option but to believe.
mm,
But if you are passionate about, I'm not so passionate, but if you do some research at least for a month before trying to go to buy a washing machine, so he'll have at least certain amount of idea. Then he can just use any marketing tactics and easily fool you. So
yeah,
that's one thing that and so one should inculcate on their own, and that's one thing. And another thing that I uh, heard from that guest is that if you want to I'm not exactly sure what word he used to be successful or to grow fast in your career or something. You have to try to be good at the intersection of two areas. Means if you want to succeed in a traditional area, it will take you a very long time. Suppose some traditional areas like which academic fields that existed for years, like for example, traditional computer science or chemistry, physics, or engineering, like mechanical engineering. So if you want to be very good at that thing, it will take you decades to be known as an expert or a pioneer in that field. But if you are good at I would say, at the intersection of two things, then uh, you'll become very good in. I say you'll become very sought after, a very rare breed in very quickly. So for example, you are a mechanical engineer and you also have certain knowledge about machine learning and the applied machine learning and artificial intelligence. So
yeah,
you can use machine learning techniques in suppose mechanical engineering design. So that is something very few mechanical engineers know. So you have that
right,
special subset of skills. So instantly you are a very rare person. So that will make you very highly sought after. So that's he said you'll quickly become very sought after, and you'll become a very and you'll very quickly become an expert because there aren't many people who can do that. As opposed to
mm,
suppose you want to be a very good mechanical engineer in and of itself, then to become very sought after a pioneer, a very rare breed, you have to work decades because someone has been doing the same thing for 20, 30 years and you just graduated from that field. So to catch up
yeah,
to that person, it will take you decades. Or you have to wait until he retires and dies, and only then you'll be able to use it. So, so those are two things that I've learned. That to be good in intersection of two things, and to to know a little bit about a lot of things so that you don't get blocked.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, that's about it that I had to say about this discussion. So anything to say? We
So
have
next, I think I'd like to discuss about the science, technology, and society and the intersection between them, from what I've learned.
okay, okay, okay. So when will you do that? Next week or somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, we can do it some
Or
in the middle of the week, maybe Wednesday or Thursday.
okay,
I think we can stop this rate.
okay.